Fuller and all of the things that he's done and the courage that he's shown on issues facing our community over the years. I also wanted to use this opportunity to inject one idea, an opinion that I have on a policy issue, and that is on the W-2 program, which is the welfare reform in Wisconsin. I think there's a consensus in our community that we do want people to move away from dependence and into the world of work. And there are a lot of things that have been set up that may well work. I think there's been a sincere effort made by the state to try to make it work, particularly by improving the daycare component. But there's one component of it that is unnecessarily harsh and ineffective that could be easily changed and wouldn't cost the state money, and that is to have the people that get the community service portion of W-2, which is estimated to be about 75% of the people, for them to receive the minimum wage, pay payroll taxes, and be able to capture the federal earned income credit, which would give somebody just about enough money to survive with their children. They will not have enough money to survive with their children the way the program's set up right now. And this can be done in a way that actually doesn't cost any more than the current program. It's something that that is going to be a very important issue in the next 3-4 months, that this change be made. And for some families, it's a question of survival. And I just wanted to bring it up because I want people to think about it. I don't bring it up in a way that is critical of anybody that's in office, but what I'm trying to do is challenge the governor and the legislature to do the right thing so that when we have the King celebration next year, it is a celebration of people's ability to get out of dependence and into work, not a question of trying to find a way for people to survive. And I feel completely as if it's fine to say this today because I know it's in the spirit of what Dr. King would have said. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Norquist.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm going to help you with that 90 minutes. I'm going to take one. You know, it's a pleasure for me to be here. The Milwaukee branch is proud to be a part of this Dr. Martin Luther King occasion breakfast. We're glad that Sykes Community, American Family, and Warner Cable are supporting this. One of the things that we are proud of, very seldom do you ever get invited to something when the funds are going to go to you. This is the first time. So I appreciate that. We intend to use the funds to help with the executive secretary that we're going to hire, also with the activities that have gone on for last year, plus we have a few new ones out there this year already. So we will be able to use those funds for that, and we appreciate the fact that Dr. Fuller is getting the award, so we want to say congratulations to him, and congratulations to all of you for attending. Thank you.
One of Milwaukee's great musical talents. Her name is Phoebe Hines, and she...
Good morning, everyone. The song that I chose to sing this morning is simply entitled Lead Me. And as I remember Dr. King, I'm sure sometime in his life, as the struggles got a little harder than he could bear, he had to ask the Lord to just lead him and direct him in the right path.
Please don't ever
He believed in civil rights for all people and who was dedicated and gave his own life to a dream for all people. Few of us have the unwavering vision and the steadfast commitment to pursue the dream of change that Dr. King fervently sought. Each of us does, however, have the capacity to make a contribution to that dream by creating a dialogue of understanding. And no, I'm not going to pass the collection plate. But what I am going to do is ask each and every one of you to engage in a dialogue this morning. And I'd like to start that dialogue by having you stand up on your feet. Come on, stand up. I'd like you to find someone that you've never met, and when you find that person, extend your hand in friendship, introduce yourself, and ask them to keep the dream alive. Keep the dream alive. Keep the dream alive. Comfortable the next time. You see, the only way we'll keep the dream alive in Milwaukee or anywhere else is by reaching out and communicating one by one. So continue to keep the dream alive. I now have the privilege of introducing Don Rosette, who will introduce our Drum Major Award honoree this morning. Don is Vice President of Sykes Communication and General Manager of WMCS 1290 Radio. Don?
Thank you, Flamont. Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. I am delighted to introduce, or present, I should say, to most of you our honoree this morning, because I'm sure if you lived in Milwaukee for any length of time at all, you've met Dr. Fuller or have been exposed to some of the many good things he's done for this community. In August of 1995, Dr. Fuller joined the faculty at Marquette University as the Distinguished Professor of Education and Director of the Institute for the Transformation of Learning, a national education forum. This position also affords him the opportunity to teach and advise doctoral students. In addition, he is currently a senior fellow with the Annenberg Institute on Decentralized Authority and Support for Equity in Funding for Public Education at the state governmental level. Dr. Fuller received his BS degree in sociology from Carroll College in 1962 and his doctorate degree in sociological foundations of education from Marquette University in 1986. Dr. Fuller's numerous awards and acknowledgments include Honorary Doctorate of Humane Letters from Carroll College in 1987, Honorary Doctorate of Laws from Marion College in 1990. Please help me welcome Dr. Fuller.
The 90 minutes by keeping this relatively brief. And for me, that's difficult. But first of all, I want to thank Sykes Communication, Warner Cable, and American Family for establishing this breakfast and giving me this particular honor. I also want to thank God for allowing me to be here and allowing all the rest of you to be here as well. I want to express my respect to Mr. Cheney, who I've known for a long time. And I'm pleased to share this program in a way with them, with him and the NAACP, even though we do disagree on issues related to what ought to happen in Milwaukee with our children. But it is a respectful disagreement, because the respect that I have for Mr. Cheney goes deeper than any disagreement that we might have on policy. And I would hope that we would find a way in our community to have disagreements around ideas without having to try to destroy each other in the process. I want to also thank my mother, who would be here, but she is recuperating from cataract surgery. And we were with her yesterday, and I know she would be here were it not for that. I want to thank my wife for being here. People ask me what are the good things that happened to you in the past year or so, and the best thing that happened to me was getting married to Dr. Deborah McGriff, and so I appreciate her being here. And I want to thank my children who are not able to be here. 3 of our children are in New York. Kelly, my oldest daughter, and Miata, my youngest daughter, and Jacqueline McGriff, my newest daughter, and my son, Malcolm, who is hopefully working today. And my other son, Evander, who's in Newport News, Virginia. We're really proud of our kids, and so proud that December 20th, they talked me into going to see Alvin Ailey dances in New York. We took the 3 daughters out. I'm not into dancing and stuff, that's what's funny. But anyway, I'm really proud of them, and I enjoy myself. I also want to thank all of my friends. I have all kinds of friends in this room. You know, you get to a certain age and you have to admit you've been friends with somebody for 40 years, and you're like, oh my God. But, you know, it's a fact. I mean, I got people sitting over at the table like Harry Oden and James Kimball. You know, we played basketball together. And the person who's most responsible for a lot of the ways I am as a teacher, you know, everybody remembers some teacher that really had an impact on them. Well, the teacher who had an impact on me is sitting over there. His name is Vic Anderson. He also sort of masqueraded as a basketball coach. But, you know, people talk about these basketball coaches that are mean. There's the prototype over there. You know, but, it's always good to see him. And he comes to everything, you know, and we really appreciate it. And I love him, and I just wanted to know that. I also want to thank all of the colleagues that I've had an opportunity to work with over these years. One of the things about having a lot of different jobs is you have a lot of people that you work with. So I want to thank all of them. And I want to thank all of the, what I call like comrades in struggle, people who've been involved with me over all of these years and all these different struggles that we've been involved in. The Coalition to Save North Division, Coalition for Justice for Ernest Lacey, Concerned Citizens for Quality Education for Black Children, Crusade to Save Our Children, the Black Student Union at MATC, the Black Political Network, and the North Lincoln Alumni. All of these are entities that have had a direct impact on my life, and also one of the reasons why I'm up here receiving this award. Because all of you know that whenever you get an individual award for works, it isn't about an individual. It's about a community. It's about a collective of people who've been involved in various ways. I also want to thank this community. Milwaukee has given me tremendous opportunities over all of these years, beginning, of course, with North Division, but it's all of the opportunities I've had to work for the county, for MATC, for the state, the Milwaukee Public School System. It was a tremendous honor to be the superintendent of Milwaukee Public Schools. And one of the individuals that you never hear about who helped me through all of this is sitting right here, Helen Wallace, whose quote was my secretary, but more than that, she was my friend. And she was the one who, in some of those darkest days up there in that office, and there are a lot of them up there, she was always there, and I deeply appreciate that. And then Marquette University, which has given me an opportunity to work there twice. So you know, I sort of came around back to Marquette, and I deeply appreciate it. So, I mean, I can't thank everybody, but I'm trying to thank everybody that I can to let you know how much I appreciate it. My mentors, particularly Mr. Wesley Scott and Mr. Starnes and Cloyce Burns. The last two are no longer with us, but these were men who helped me understand what you're supposed to be out here and how you're supposed to function in the community. And I carry their memories with me, and Mr. Scott is still here every day telling me when I'm doing something wrong. He only claims me when I do stuff right. Let me just say that I take all awards seriously. I've been very fortunate in my life to receive a lot of awards, but I particularly take an award in the name of Martin Luther King seriously. And some of you all may know that I gave one of them back. I received an award from, John wasn't the mayor then, Myatt was the mayor. And they gave me an award in the name of Dr. Martin Luther King, and a year later I gave it back. And I gave it back because I don't think you can run around giving awards in the name of Martin Luther King and not function in a way that respects that. And at that point in time, the city was not respecting that. So I gave it back. And it's hard to realize now, but that at that time, and John Norquist knows about this because he was one of the first ones to raise it, there were no black people in charge of anything in the city. This wasn't this is not ancient history. This was not a long time ago. John was one of the first ones to ever raise that with Mayor Meyer. And I felt that, you know, when you get an award like that, then you gotta be prepared to do better by the poor citizens. You gotta be prepared to make changes so that the people who suffer, that there's some help for them. If you're not prepared to do that, don't be giving no awards in the name of Martin Luther King. And that's just how I feel, you know, about this. And so I just want everybody to know that when I take these awards like that, I take it seriously. Because it says to me, you gotta get this award and you gotta go out and you gotta work harder. And that's sort of where I'm coming from. And so I wanna give you kind of the words of two people that are connected. Obviously, one of them is going to be Martin Luther King, but the other is W.E.B. Du Bois. And I'm going to use these words to sort of make a couple points, and then I'm going to sit down. W.E.B. Du Bois said that the Negro is a sort of seventh son, born with a veil and gifted with second sight in this American world, a world which yields him no true self-consciousness, but only lets him see himself through the revelation of the other world. It is a peculiar sensation, this double consciousness, this sense of always looking at oneself through the eyes of others, of measuring one's soul by the tape of a world that looks on in amused contempt and pity. One feels his two-ness in America, a Negro, two souls, two thoughts, two warring ideals in one dark body whose dogged strength alone keeps it from being torn asunder. That's in the souls of black folks. This next one is by Martin Luther King. Being a Negro in America is not a comfortable existence. It means being a part of the company of the bruised, the battered, and the scarred, and the defeated. Being a Negro in America means trying to smile when you want to cry. It means trying to hold on to physical life amid psychological death. It means the pains of watching your children grow up with clouds of inferiority in their mental skies. It means having your legs cut off and then being condemned for being crippled. It means seeing your mother and your father spiritually murdered by the slings and arrows of daily exploitation and then being hated for being an orphan. Being a Negro in America means listening to suburban politicians talk eloquently against open housing while arguing in the same breath that they're not racist. It's being harried by day and haunted by night, by a nagging sense of nobodiness and constantly fighting to be saved from the poison of bitterness. It means the ache and anguish of living in so many situations where hopes unborn have died. You know, people like to honor Dr. King, but we like to sanitize him. And the further we get away from the struggles that led him, the more sanitized he becomes. And we got all these people running around talking about his dream. His dream was our nightmare. And the reality of it is that the conditions that we're facing today, poor people are still suffering. Still suffering. And there is nothing redeeming about being poor. The only people that tell you that that's all right are people who got money. Nobody who's poor waxes eloquently about how great it is to be that way. And so when you honor King and you come to breakfasts and all of this for King, you got to remember what he stood for. And he stood for change. He stood for making a difference for the people who have the least. And so when you read his words, there are two ways. People say, well, but why do you want to keep bringing this up? We have a nice little ceremony. We have a nice little breakfast. You know, I feel good. And here you are talking about this stuff. I'm talking about this stuff because the historical condition is still a contemporary reality. I'm talking about this stuff because it's a historical truth that's still embedded in truth and reality today. And we ain't far from it. It's like we sitting up in here and it's all nice and stuff. Think about these kids out there who today don't have no breakfast. Because school's closed, they don't get nothing. They don't live far from here. You know? These kids who was cold a couple days ago, do you know that still in 1997, we have children who come to school with Wonder Bread wrappers on their feet for boots? And so we are running around, you know, embracing Martin Luther King's image. But it's not the image, it's a struggle that has to be embraced. And so when you come out to these breakfasts for them, it means you got to go back and say, we ought not to have children coming to school with Wonder Bread wrappers on their feet for boots in America in 1997. So that, for me, this is what this is about. And so when you listen to what Du Bois had to say, and you listen to what King had to say about black people, there are two ways we can react. One is we can fall into complacency, acceptance, apathy, bitterness, blame everybody, and do nothing. Or what we can do is we can fight. We can say that those of us who have it, we're going to reach back each day to try to pull somebody with us who doesn't have it. You know, because a lot of us, and I'm talking about black people now, a lot of us get these jobs and stuff and get all sedity and bougie. You know, all you Negroes who get these jobs and you get a job and you just glad to be there. It ain't that you're gonna do nothing, you're just happy to be there. just grinning. You know, the ones that, you know, you come to these Negroes and you say, well, look, I mean, can you do something for us? Well, you know, I just got here. You know, God, give me a little time to see what's happening. Then you come back to them, well, you know, I just got a promotion, so, you know, you got to give me a little bit of time. Then you come back to them, well, you know, I'm about to retire. So you know, I'm telling you that when you be talking about honoring King, it's about a willingness to struggle. It's about if you get to a place on high, it ain't about looking down, it's about getting down to help people get up. That's what this is about. And so I call on all of you all to just understand that we got to fight, that our children need us. That our children need us. And we're going to disagree, and I'm going to fight, and you know, but you have to understand that my belief is that there are no institutions out here that are more important than the children. And so if we got to change these institutions, out here fighting for people who have nothing. That's what this is all about. And so I just leave you with this. You know, when I was getting ready to come to this, some of y'all know I'm a little part-time DJ. I've been trying to get on 1290, you know, to run my stuff one night, you know. When I was coming here, I had to find the right song to get me in the mood. So I picked out Arrested Development. And it's the one that didn't make it, Ziggledoom or something like that I can't pronounce. But y'all ought to check this CD out. It's deep. That's why I didn't make it, because it's too deep. You know what I'm saying? It ain't all of that claptrap. I mean, they talking about real stuff. And on this CD, there's a cut called Pride. And what I want to leave you with is the words of Arrested Development. What they said was, because I exist, I resist. And because I am alive, I strive. Thank you very much.
Well, I said this would be an exciting and memorable breakfast, and I think I'll add to that, inspiring. There are few people who can bring a message of challenge and certainly of hope to an audience like Dr. Fuller. And we certainly thank you for being here today and for remaining an outspoken advocate for children as well as a catalyst for change in Milwaukee. You are truly a spark in a community that needs a spark. At this point, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce Ray Sykes, President of Sykes Communications, who will present the award to Dr. Fuller.
Thank you for mine. I'd like to thank everybody for coming this morning. I'd like to thank the mayor for also coming. I'd like to thank Ms. Hines for her lovely voice and the beautiful song that she's given us this morning. But most of all, like I said, I'd like to thank Dr. Fuller for being a part of our program and delivering that very inspiring message that he just delivered. I'm very touched by that. Dr. Martin Luther King was one of my most favorite people in the whole wide world. So Dr. Fuller, on behalf of American Family Insurance, Warner Cable, and Sykes Communications, we present to you the Drum Age Award and the second annual Dr. Martin Luther King Day Breakfast. Thank you very much. You know, this is our second year hosting this breakfast. Hopefully, we'll be as fortunate as the folks back in my hometown in Houston, Texas. We have this breakfast every year. This is about the 15th year. This year, we have about 1,500 people that's attending as I speak. Possibly could have had more if they had the room. But each year, the breakfast has grown and grown and grown to this enormous number. And everybody look forward to going to this breakfast every year. Hopefully, next year we'll be able to do something even bigger and make this breakfast a bigger success than what it is. And hopefully we'll be able to continue to find honorable people like our guest this morning to receive these awards. And we will continue to try to give the proceeds for these awards to very needy groups. I would like to, at this time, present a plaque of our appreciation, a token of our appreciation to American Family Insurance for their sponsorship and their many contributions to helping make this program successful. I also have a token of our gratitude and appreciation for Warner Cable Communications. Thank you.
Well, thanks so much to our sponsors and also to Mr. Sykes Communications. And thank you most of all to you, Dr. Fuller. I'm sure I express the sentiments of everyone here this morning in extending our sincere congratulations on a tremendous honor. We wish you continued success. With that, I'd like to ask Phoebe Hines to return for another musical selection.
Any accomplishments made by Dr. Fuller, Dr. Martin Luther King, any great people, they would say, don't give me the glory, give it to God, because without Him, we're nothing. There's a scripture that says, not by might, not by power, but it's by my spirit, says the Lord. This thing you've done for me, and never hope to be, I will owe to thee. God be the glory, to God be the glory.
I've got a feeling. Whew. Well, as you may have noticed, we've made a few adjustments in our program today, both in the interest of time and the interest of bringing you back to us next year. I'd especially like to thank Elliot Cohen with American Family Insurance and Jackie Jans with Warner Cable for having allowed us to move our program along this morning. Before I bring Pastor Dukes up to deliver the benediction, I'd like to share just a very quick and final story with you. It's about a little boy who lived on the side of a valley, and he became angry with his mother one day. So he ran out into the valley, and he yelled at the top of his lungs, "I hate you."
The Green Bay Packers, you know, they came within last year 15 minutes and 6 referees for making it to the Super Bowl. And this year we're going to have the Dallas Cowboys come to Green Bay in January when it's 50 degrees below zero and it's snowing and blowing.
I didn't give you my permission to take my picture, you know, so you have to pay me for it. Okay,
That's so good, though.
I'll come by and get my money later.
Oh, really? Money?
Dr. Fuller.
I don't have any comment to make right now. And, you know, once I meet with the board, you know, I'll have a comment.
What's going on through your mind right now?
Well, you know, a lot of things. But like I said, you know, after I meet with the board, I'll make a comment and I'll answer your questions as long as you have them.
Have you made up your mind? Will you be resigning tonight?
Like I said, you know, I'm going to talk to the board, and once I talk to the board, I'll be very happy to make a statement.
Where will you be holding your news conference afterwards? Just right out here?
Yeah, I think so.
Find out perhaps in the next couple of hours whether or not how will remain as superintendent. And we'll bring you the complete story of what happened tonight on the sidelines.
Director DeBrun? Here. Director Johnson? Here. Director Lucy? Here. Director O'Neill? There are 8 members present, Madam Chair. Quorum exists.
Will the secretary please read the call of the meeting?
At the request of President Mary Bills, a special meeting of the Board of School Directors will be held at 6 p.m. Tuesday, April 18th, 1995, in the Committee Room 103 of the School Administration Building, 5225 West Felice Street, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, in response to the request of the superintendent for the purpose of 1, discussing the future direction of the Milwaukee Public Schools under the leadership of the current superintendent and the Board of School Directors, and 2, considering and possibly taking action on modifications to the superintendent's employment agreement. Pursuant to the provisions of Section 19.85, parens 1, parens C, Wisconsin statutes, the board may retire to executive session to consider modifications to the term and structure of compensation of the superintendent under his employment agreement with the board, and may reconvene in open session to take action on matters considered in executive session. Madam President, this meeting was moved to the auditorium from room 103 to accommodate the audience.
Thank you. We're here this evening at the request of Dr. Fuller to discuss the future direction of the Milwaukee Public Schools under the leadership of the current superintendent and the Board of School Directors. While we appreciate those persons present tonight in the audience, this is a special board meeting and not a committee of the whole. Therefore, we will not be taking any public comment. We will first hear from Dr. Fuller. After Dr. Fuller's comments, if an executive session is necessary, we will meet in executive session pursuant to Wisconsin Statute Section 19.85, Parent 1, Parent C. The board, after executive session, may reconvene in open session to take action on matters considered in the executive session. At this time, Dr. Fuller, could you give us your remarks regarding the future direction of the Milwaukee Public Schools?
Thank you very much, Director Bills. Let me first express my appreciation to the board and to you for convening this meeting. I do not have any comments on number one. I would request, if this is appropriate, that we move on to number two.
Madam President,
Dr. Neske.
the only conditions under which the board can meet in executive session is what's stated in the public notice, to consider the term and the compensation, the structure of the compensation for the superintendent's employment agreement.
Okay, is that?
Yes.
Okay, then the chair, pursuant to Wisconsin Statute Section 19.85, Parent 1, Parent C, will entertain a motion for the board to go into executive session for the purpose of discussing possible modifications to the term and structure of compensation of the superintendent under his employment agreement. The board may reconvene in open session to take actions on matters considered in executive session.
Second.
Discussion? Please call the roll.
Director DeBruin? Aye. Director Johnson? Aye. Director Lucy?
Aye.
Director O'Neill?
Aye.
Director Sinicki? Aye. Director Small?
Aye.
Director Todd?
Aye.
And President Bills.
Aye.
There are 8 ayes, Madam President. The motion carries. Now in executive session.
Yeah, no, one more. One more on the last. The last. It's funny how they don't mention it. That happened to my husband because my husband and I used to work in the same place.
Yeah.
And there were people who saw stuff.
Yeah, you know what he's gonna say? I thought I told. I thought I told.
It was,
Mary wants to know whether I can read the statement from up there and then come back down here for the press conference part of it.
We could do that. Everybody's, I think, in a situation where that would work. It would work. It's not ideal, but
Would it be,
it could work. Yeah.
would it be better to do it this way?
Yeah.
Mary,
Yeah. Well, sure, you can step up there.
No, that's true.
Watching you.
I know, I said, we're still in the front row. How's it feel?
Yeah. Get up there.
I started to bring out some water. How many cans of water?
Got a couple cans of water? How many should we bring?
I don't. Is this 2 cans?
I don't know. I got a feeling it's going to be 4 or 5.
Maybe
You see, Larry.
tomorrow will be 4 or 5.
You see, Larry.
Let's see who they got here. Change my brand.
You should have brought me one, Larry.
If I'd known you was here.
Okay, having met in executive session for the purpose of those matters listed in the call of the meeting, we are back in open session. Dr. Fuller, do you want to make a statement before we take action on matters discussed in executive session?
Thank you very much, Director Bills and members of the Milwaukee Board of School Directors. Over the past 4 years, it has been my great privilege and honor to serve as the superintendent of the Milwaukee Public Schools. In that time, I have consistently been guided by 5 specific goals for the students who graduate from the Milwaukee Public Schools. Number 1, I want all of them to be lifelong learners who maximize their intellectual, emotional, physical, and moral capabilities. Number 2, I want those who attend college immediately upon graduation to do so without needing to spend their first year in remedial classes. Number 3, I want those who immediately enter the world of work to have the skills and attitudes they need to secure at least an entry-level job that will put them on a path to a meaningful career. These students would also have the same rigorous preparation as those who immediately go on to college. Number 4, I want some of them to develop an entrepreneurial spirit so that they will be able to create jobs and wealth for themselves and their community. Number 5, I want all of them to be engaged in what Richard Shaw calls, quote, the practice of freedom, the means by which men and women deal critically and creatively with reality and discover how to participate in the transformation of their world. The children of Milwaukee, their families, and indeed all the citizens of this community deserve an educational system which will explore every reasonable educational approach, try any thoughtful reforms that promises to provide them a better opportunity for leading fruitful, fulfilling lives. The children of Milwaukee deserve to be placed above any special interests or any organized group that might stand in the way of their learning. For all of my adult life in Milwaukee, every fiber of my being has been devoted to helping this community's children achieve a better future. This will always be the agenda that guides me. It is a tribute to the resiliency and the intelligence of the children and the parents of Milwaukee that they have done as well as they have in spite of the neglect that they have suffered. It is a tribute to the dedications of thousands of splendid individual educators and support staff in the Milwaukee Public Schools, that they have done so much for our children in spite of the self-serving vision of their purported representatives. We have heard from these, quote, representatives, those who protect the forces of the status quo, that Howard Fuller wants to sell our children out to, quote, privatization. We have heard about my supposedly secret agenda. We have heard that I'm in the hip pocket of the, quote, downtown business interests. Indeed, these were the scurrilous messages that the Milwaukee Teachers Education Association and others spread during the recent school board campaign. These charges reflect the central strategy of the defenders of the status quo. Smear any effort to bring genuine reform to the system as a, quote, plot to destroy public education. I believe the people and the children of Milwaukee know better. I am in nobody's pocket. People who know me understand I have been willing and I remain willing to sit down with anyone, anytime, anywhere to promote the interests of our children. Yes, I am supportive of a whole range of ideas to improve educational opportunity for our children and their parents. Yes, I will challenge the rigid, bureaucratic, and self-serving rules of the system by opening the door to innovative and radical educational approaches. But in anyone's pocket, no. For kids, yes. I will stand with anyone who puts the children and their parents first and foremost. I will oppose anyone who puts jobs, privileges, and rules before our children. My real mission has and always will be the effective education of all of our children. There are hundreds of administrators, teachers, and support staff in the Milwaukee public school system who share that mission with me. They believe, as I do, that this system must be transformed radically if this mission is to be accomplished. But the educational system as presently configured still is not designed to achieve this mission. Instead, our system remains fundamentally mired in the status quo. Powerful forces conspire to protect careers, contracts, and current practices before tending to the interests of all of our children. Because of these forces, what we have achieved has too often been painfully and unnecessarily slow in coming. Let me be blunt. Too often in the last several years, our children have suffered under the yoke of these powerful forces. The events of the last several months have created a more detrimental political environment, which now threatens to reverse the momentum we need to make major change. I now believe that I will be maneuvered into a position where I would be expected to become a bureaucrat protecting the status quo while the public is led to believe that true reform is underway. The day-to-day management of the district will be crippled in an atmosphere where the superintendent and the staff are uncertain about the depth of board support. There cannot be a running debate about whether the board and the superintendent are in harmony. The district cannot succeed if the primary question day after day, week after week, is whether the superintendent can, quote, patch together 5 votes to support the many actions that will be necessary to carry out a rigorous reform agenda. For these reasons, I have regretfully concluded that I can no longer pursue my goals and mission as the superintendent of the Milwaukee Public Schools. And so I have submitted my resignation to the Board of School Directors effective July 31st, 1995. I am eternally grateful to the people of Milwaukee and the board which hired me for the opportunity to have served as your superintendent of schools. Let me emphasize that for me, this is not an end. Today is the first day of the rest of the struggle, for me and for all of us. For me and for all of us who are totally committed to our children. The words of William Daggett will continue to guide us. We must love our children's hopes, dreams, and prayers more than we love the institutional heritage of the school system. Thank you very much.
Dr. Fuller. What is the pleasure of the board with respect to those matters discussed in executive session?
Madam Chair.
Director DeBruin.
Madam Chair, with sadness and regret, I move that the MPS Board of Directors accept the resignation of Dr. Fuller, effective July 31st, 1995, that the President appoint a committee to resolve issues and reach a recommended agreement concerning details relating to his departure, and that the Board extend its sincerest thanks to Dr. Fuller for the effort and energy that he has shown over the last 4 years.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Director DeBruin?
Aye.
Director Johnson?
Aye.
Director Lucy?
Aye.
Director O'Neill?
Aye.
Director Sinicki?
Aye.
Director Small?
Aye.
Director Todd? And President Bills.
Aye.
There are 8 ayes, Madam President. The motion carries.
Thank you. Dr. Fuller, I speak for a majority of this board when I say that we do regret your decision. There being no further business before the board, this meeting is adjourned.
As I promised, I'm prepared to answer any questions that any of the press might have.
There are 4 administrators in front row, didn't even
Yes.
call it, didn't even applause anymore.
Now, will you stay in
Wonder
Milwaukee
what
and
that means.
continue the fight that you started many years ago?
At the present time, I have a number of opportunities that I'm considering. Some of those opportunities are not in Milwaukee. It is my preference to remain in Milwaukee, and I would hope that I could find a way to remain in Milwaukee that would allow me to continue to support the agenda that I believe our children need.
You said that you've always tried to keep an open mind and try to hold open discussions with people. What is it about the new board that takes office next week that you can't work with?
Well, I think that I don't want to get into any speculation about that. I think you have to understand that I did an analysis of what I think it takes to be an effective superintendent. And there are a lot of things that, quite honestly, happens day to day that those of you in this room never know about. And I made a very firm decision that I was not going to die a death of 1,000 cuts. And, you know, I believe that I have to be in a certain way. I have to have a certain level of respect and trust for all of the people that I work for. It's just the way I am. And I've decided that there are other ways for me to help our children, and I intend to do that if I can find a way to remain in Milwaukee.
Have you been offered other jobs?
Yes.
Have you thought of being Governor Thompson's new education secretary should that pass?
Absolutely not. But I want to be clear, that's just a statement that I'm not interested in. That's not a statement about the governor or the proposal. It's just a statement that as I told him directly, that is not something that I'm interested in. I was flattered that he considered me, but that's not something that I'm interested in.
Do you have someone you'd recommend to be the next school board president?
No. I'm sure that the board is very capable of deciding its leadership, and they don't need my advice on that issue.
Do you still foresee a chance for charter schools to exist in Milwaukee under some sort of different scenario if it's not passed by the school board?
I think that one of the considerations that will probably take place in the light of some of the comments that have been made about blocking reform, I think it's safe to say that there will be considerations about other ways to assure that those reforms will not be blocked. Well, first of all, I don't think it is appropriate for me to say that or to comment on that, other than to say that my hope is that there are people in this room, and I'm looking at some of them, who are principals, who are teachers, who are aides, who work in central office, that I've tried to work with as deeply as I could over these last 4 years. It is my hope that some of the things that we have started that hold out great promise for our children, that it will continue. I believe that we have very dedicated people in the Milwaukee Public Schools who will continue to fight for the kids in the way that they see it. I simply believe that in order for their fight to be successful, we're going to have to do some things outside of the system that allows for them to know that they can move forward in an aggressive way inside the system. I've always believed that, and I still believe that.
Yeah, thank you. Dr. Fuller, you leave angry or bitter?
I hope you can see that I'm not either. I feel blessed that I've had the opportunity to serve the Milwaukee Public Schools, but I had to make a decision, because someone asked me a few minutes ago or earlier today, what is the message that you then want to send to the kids? The message that I want to send to the kids is that a couple things. Number one, there's all kinds of ways to fight for them, and I will never desert them in that way. I will always fight for them no matter where I am. The second thing that I want to, and it gets to your question, is that I want my kids to know that at times in their life they will have to make difficult decisions, but it's very important that you make those decisions with dignity and with respect. And
What is right now in Milwaukee Public Schools?
Well, I think that the bureaucracy has just gotten too large, and it's not as responsive to parents as I think it should be. Parents don't know that they can send their child to a neighborhood school if they buy a house in a particular area or move to a particular area. And that's what this proposal is designed to do, just tell the citizens of Milwaukee that if you're living close to a school, this is your neighborhood school. Now, if because of the numbers that's not possible, then some kids are going to have to move probably.
What is your reaction to Howard Fuller's expected resignation?
Well, I think it's unfortunate. I would have hoped that he could have worked with the new board and they could have had a meeting of the minds. I've been involved on the school board and was searching for a superintendent, and it's very difficult, and it's really causes the district to pause in any steps forward that it's making. And if they could have settled their differences and moved on, I think that we all would have been far better off.
What does his expected resignation do to the future of reforms for Milwaukee Public Schools? Does it help it? Or
Well, I think reforms can move forward. Dr. Fuller had his set of reforms that he believed in, and other people have other things. And he maybe believes in privatization of schools where other people don't. And so I don't think this is a death knell for MPS. I don't think it's a death knell for reforms in the Milwaukee public school system. It may be a step back from some of the privatization unless other forces step in.
this proposal to split up the district, how contingent is that on Mr. Fuller resigning?
Well, it'll be introduced either way. I think it's more likely to move ahead in the legislature and to the governor if Dr. Fuller isn't there. I would imagine that if Dr. Fuller was superintendent, that this wouldn't be a proposal that he would support, only because it really eliminates the school superintendent of the city of Milwaukee. And it's just a radical change, and I think it's a discussion point that we can now begin moving in maybe a different direction. Even if we do this, if we take the Milwaukee Public Schools and make it into 5 districts, these would still be the 5 largest school districts in the state. So there's a lot of room for give and take with the community, and I've been sharing it with school officials, and I've been sharing it with legislators from all around the Milwaukee area, trying to get their feedback, and told them that I'm willing to discuss any area that they think is important. I've discussed it with Mary Bills and people from the school board.
Scott Jensen seems to think that school choice is going to take off now.
Well, that could very well be. I think that the school choice was coming, no matter whether Dr. Fuller was there or not. He had been somewhat of a supporter of school choice. This may give supporters of parochial school choice some cover in the Milwaukee area. My belief is that if we're going to have school choice, it should be more inclusive, and it also should be at least countywide or statewide. Why people who don't live in Milwaukee feel that they should be experimenting with Milwaukee school children, but they won't do this in their own districts or their own neighborhoods is something that bothers me as a Milwaukee resident.
When will you?
That teacher in our school, they would be able to do that, hopefully under this. Whereas you can't do that in MPS if there's a school that you think is in crisis or a school where you'd want to attract certain teachers, because, right, that's the idea.
But your plan was to do this whether or not Fuller resigned.
Right, and I think this was just you know, like I said, this is the third draft I've had. I've been working on this for a year, and it's just we were ready to do it this week anyway.
Is Fuller's resignation a good or bad thing?
Well, I think that it's, you know, I think it's overall not a good thing, because I think it sends the message to Madison that the school system is in disarray, and there's going to be attempts to change it by people who really don't know what they're doing, and
I'm Charles Sykes. It is the biggest story in education reform. It's obviously the biggest story in the state today. The resignation last night, of Dr. Howard Fuller, the superintendent of schools in Milwaukee. Significant not just because we're going to have a new superintendent of schools, but because for a lot of people, Howard Fuller was a symbol of educational reform, a symbol of change, and a lot of people in this community believe that he was the last best hope for ever turning around the troubled system. And last night he just announced that he had decided that he could no longer work within the system, and he joins me now in the WTMJ studios. Good morning, Dr. Fuller.
Good morning, Joe.
It's a pleasure to have you here. We were just talking about before we went on the air, that a lot of the struggles that have gone on involving you in the last 4 years have taken place behind closed doors in private. You have not spoken out in public about your frustrations about the union, about the board, about the bureaucracy. So for a lot of people, what happened yesterday came as something of a surprise, because, and now, because of you have laid your job on the line, you have their attention. In your resignation statement last night, you said, the educational system as presently configured still is not designed to achieve the mission of educating children. Instead, our system remains fundamentally mired in the status quo. Powerful forces conspire to protect careers, contracts, and current practices before tending to the interests of our children. What is it you're talking about there?
Well, what I'm specifically talking about, Charlie, is that, as you know and others know, I've tried to push forward, what I think is an aggressive but needed agenda of reform. And what it really involved was opening up the system. And what I meant by that is I wanted to create new forms of governance, real charter schools that I'd be glad to discuss, to expand our relationship with our existing partnership schools, to be able to bring in public-private partnerships, if that would bring some innovative ideas into the system, to close schools that continue to fail our children and open them up with a different mix of adults. All of these things taken together with the things that are happening, quote, outside of the system, choice, which I think is a very important issue to be dealt with, that if we could get the synergism of all of those things happening, then I thought that there could be change. The problem is, without those types of changes, I do not believe that the system will ever be able to reform itself adequately enough to meet the needs of the kids. Now, I have to be very clear, Charlie, in that I have said consistently, and I believe this, that we have a tremendous number of educators and support staff in there who are excellent people, who every day do phenomenal things with kids. So it's not a situation where the majority of the people are bad. It's a situation where we have the majority of the people in a system that has to be radically transformed. And I don't believe that transformation can take place without some of the changes that I've suggested.
From now on given the fact that you've concluded that the system is not going to reform itself on its own from the inside, what kind of outside pressure is going to take to achieve the kinds of goals you'd set out?
Well, I think I think the issues that are currently on the table related to choice, I've not said anything about that because, you know, the board had a certain position. I felt and still feel as a superintendent that it was important for me to support that position. But I believe that parents do have to, in fact, be empowered. I think the issues that Polly Williams has raised, Zakia Courtney has raised, the issues that are incorporated in the governor's budget, I think serious consideration needs to be given to those issues, because even if you can get things like charters, or even if we can do some of the innovative things that are happening inside the system, without parents ultimately being empowered, I believe that those reforms will be frustrated and limited by virtue of the lack of parental power to make sure that what needs to happen happens. And so what I'm going to try to do is to speak out as forcefully as I can on those issues, but not in a way that bashes the Milwaukee Public Schools. And the message that I want to try to give is that issues like choice and charters and et cetera are not meant, in my opinion, from my standpoint, to destroy public education. But in fact, it is to help strengthen it. But the issue of the strengthening it is not tied up in the system. The issue of the strengthening it is tied up in what is it that you have to do to better educate kids.
Now, you have not spoken out on this issue because, in effect, the school board came down with a different policy back in 1991. Right. That was sort of a setback for you back then, that they would not support you. I had the sense, I was telling Rob Edwards a couple of minutes ago, just watching you on television last night, listening to you on the radio, that your voice sounds different, the timbre of the voice sounds different, because in a sense it does sound like, and I know there's some sadness in leaving, but you sound like a man who has had a 500-pound weight lifted off his shoulder, that you're now going to be able to talk about things and say things that would have been inconceivable when you were an employee of the Milwaukee Public Schools.
I think that's correct, but I think that anybody who leaves a position like this, and I've talked to Debbie about this since, you know, she left the superintendency. There is a sadness, Charlie, because really there is no position like a superintendent of schools. It's a special kind of position in a community, but it is a tremendous task every day, and it does tear you apart in a lot of ways. So today I do feel that kind of lifted off of me, but there's a sadness because I know for the principals and teachers who are going to be working with our kids every day, they're still going to have to be there every day doing the things that they have to do, and their jobs are tremendously difficult.
Let's talk about the decision that you made to quit. You said that you didn't really it became absolute until the night before the resignation, but obviously this is something that you've been thinking about more and more because I know that before the campaign, before the school board election, this was something that was obviously you were thinking about. Just tracing in your mind over the last 4 years, you know, a lot of, you know, you've had some ups, you've had some downs, some wins, some losses, some frustrations. When did you begin to start thinking that if you could not achieve these goals, you would have to step down? Was that 6 months ago, 4 months ago, 2 months ago?
Actually, and this is true, I thought about it every day. I mean, I got up every day and I kept asking myself, Howard, can you do something today that you think will make a difference? Because as you may know, Charlie, a lot of my friends wanted me to step out a couple years ago. Some after the referendum, some after you know, my illness. So that issue was always there, but I always felt in my heart that I could keep going. But the election for me was a point where I finally had to ask myself, given the way that election went down and the aftermath of it and the political environment that was created, could I keep going? And finally, you know, the answer was no. So I really started giving it a real serious thought a few days before the election, and then since that point in time.
What would the new school board have done? How would it have changed your life? Why would you not stay and fight for your agenda with the school board?
Well, see, I think that I took people at their word when I saw the videotape. I've gone back through the transcript of that videotape, and what people were clearly saying to me was that we want to oppose the kind of agenda that you've set forward. And they were very clear about that. And it wasn't just the board, it's also the connection to the unions and how the system actually operates. And so I felt that I was going to be put in a position where I would no longer be absolutely certain that I could always depend on the people that I was working for. And I don't say that in any negative way. I'm just saying that I didn't think that I could be the kind of strong, effective superintendent I think you need. And I would always be searching for, do I have 5 votes? What is it going to take? This and that. And when you get into that type of environment, I don't think you can really lead a system in an aggressive way.
Did they make it clear to you privately that they intended to pursue this agenda? I mean, what was your personal interaction with them?
No, I think what I did was I took people at their word. I mean, because after the election, some people said to me, well, that's just an election talk. And the way I am, Charlie, is that if you're running out there and you're asking for people to vote for you and you lay out certain kinds of ideas, then my belief is that that's what you believe. And so consequently, you can't come to me later and say, well, we were just doing that and now we're elected and we're going to be different. And I don't, first of all, I don't think it should be that way and I don't believe it. So it wasn't so much the personal conversations that I had as much as my own analysis of the situation, both the election and again, what that meant inside the system.
Now, you went out of your way yesterday to make it clear that there was not one person who was responsible for you leaving, that it was the sum of the things that you just described.
Right.
However, there have been comments made in the last few days, last couple of weeks by at least one member of the school board, and he's obviously not alone, Leon Todd, who might be the president, who has actually made very, very personal comments about you. In effect, and I don't think this is going too far, in effect said that you're a water boy for the business community, that you are a puppet for the business community, that downtown business interests control you, that you don't ever make up your mind without checking with Tim Sheehy. What was your reaction to that, and how did that play into your decision?
Well, I know Director Todd, and he's still one of my bosses, so I think that it's not appropriate at this time for me to comment on what he has to say personally. But again, like I said in the statement, Charlie, and I think you know this because we've not always agreed on issues. Nobody has me in their pocket. I mean, I do think it's important for a school superintendent to develop a positive relationship with the business community. This is a school system where over 80%, almost 80% of our kids qualify for free lunch. This is a school system where the business community pays a tremendous amount of property taxes to support the school district. This is a school system where if we want to pursue school or work, we want to pursue some other things, you need positive relationships with the business community. Just as you need to establish positive relationship with parents, positive relationships with other types of groups in the community. And so I've always felt that it was very critical that I develop those kind of relationships. And the people who've been in rooms where I've been know that those have been relationships where there's mutual respect, where there's not always total agreement, but it's based on a respect, and it is not based on, I'm going to take orders. I mean, it's ridiculous to discuss that I'm going to take orders from Tim Sheehy, and as you know, Tim is not even like that.
Well, I think what's ironic is that you have school board members who are obviously toadies of the teachers union, who are going to bow and scrape and kiss the ring of the teachers union, but their response to cover that is to accuse you of being the water boy, and as you said in the remark yesterday, part of this is a smear attempt, and I think it's part of the pattern of the teachers union that if you are going to attack someone's agenda, you also need to attack their character. And frankly, I'll tell you, last week when I first picked up a local weekly newspaper and I saw some of these comments and the fact that these were very personal attacks, it hit me that they had moved beyond simply disagreeing on the issues. It was very clear that the people in the union and the people making those comments simply were not going to treat you with respect. That it was a personal contempt. And I remember sitting there reading and I said, I know what's going to happen. Howard Fuller's going to resign, because there's no way that it's not one thing to disagree on policy, but there's no way he's going to sit and take this.
Right. I mean, I think, all of those things played a part in this. I had made a comment earlier that, an effort had been made to sort of demonize me, along with all of the demagoguery that went on about, the policies that I was pursuing. So those kind of things definitely did get factored into my decision, because there's certain things, Charlie, I'm not going to stand for, period.
All right, when we come back, I want to talk about your biggest disappointments and some of the things that happened while you were there, maybe things that, looking back on your record, also what's ahead, and your reaction to some of the more radical proposals for changing education. We're going to open up the phone lines as well, 799-1234, 799-1620. We're talking with Milwaukee Public Schools Superintendent Howard Fuller. Hey. Majority of whose members were committed to opposing his agenda. Before we go to the phones, I just want to ask you a couple of quick questions about, what was your biggest disappointment as superintendent? Obviously, there were things that you felt needed to happen in order to achieve what you wanted to, that you didn't think you were going to be able to achieve.
Well, I think there were probably a couple. One of them was the referendum, and I think the reason why I was disappointed with that, I was disappointed in myself as much as the community. I mean, I always wonder if I, did the right thing or got the right message across. Should I have worked differently? Because I think the issues that we brought up in that referendum from an infrastructure reality, Charles, are still there. I mean, I understand the reality of what happened, but I'm still concerned about how we're going to address those issues as we move forward, just because of the aging nature of the infrastructure. And I do not want, or I hope we don't allow Milwaukee to get in a place where a number of urban areas are, where buildings are falling in on kids, and et cetera.
It's no secret, obviously, that this is an issue that you and I disagreed on. I opposed the referendum. A lot of the people that opposed it thought that perhaps that the reforms, the fundamental reforms and what was going on inside the classrooms should have been done first before the building referendum.
You know what, Charlie, I don't know that I can necessarily disagree with that. I mean, so what I did was I accepted, okay, that's the message, and so I went forward to try to push a more aggressive reform effort. But I do want to say to the community, though, that at some point in time, those infrastructure needs, they're not going to go away, and how we deal with them. And I appreciate the fact that the mayor and the city council has been working with us on trying to address them as best we can with the resources that we have. I just worry about, as this accumulates over time, our ability to deal with it.
So I want to ask you one philosophical question that came up when we were discussing your job status yesterday, and a couple of teachers called up, and it only dawned on me afterwards how fundamental the issue was. One of the teachers who called up was obviously committed, obviously a veteran teacher, was saying that one of the things he objected to was putting too much pressure on the public school system and on the teachers, because the real problem was not the system, it was the students. That you have so many students who come in from dysfunctional families, who come from backgrounds of poverty, who may have suffered from lead poisoning. And he used the analogy that the students were the iceberg that was going to take down the Titanic of the Milwaukee Public Schools. And one of our listeners sent in a fax saying that here you have one of the great divides, the question of how do you answer, how do you approach the issue of whether or not kids are teachable, or whether or not we're asking the Milwaukee Public Schools to do an impossible job?
Well, Mortimer Adler, in the book The Padilla Proposal, made the statement that there are no unteachable children. There are only adults who have not figured out the best way to teach them. And what that statement means to me is that I agree that our kids bring to the table a lot of difficulties by virtue of things that happens to them outside of the school system. But that's precisely the reason why we need to change radically, because you can't maintain a structure that was developed for kids who are no longer there. You have to deal with the reality that, yes, they are bringing a lot of issues to the table. That's why we have to do things differently. That's why we have to have a more flexible system, one that can change more rapidly. At the same time, I think it's my responsibility and other people in this community to work on those issues outside of the schools that impact on the kids. But you can't say to the parents of these children, I'm sorry, until you get better, I'm not going to be able to educate your kids. We cannot use that as an excuse not to do a better job of educating the kids. Is it difficult? Yes, it is. And I tremendously respect those teachers who do that every day. But at the same time, I believe that unless we do some things very differently, we'll never be able to get to those kids.
All right, we're going to come back to we're going to go to the phone lines in just a moment if you want to talk with Superintendent Howard Fuller. It's 9:30. Now with the latest from 620 WTMJ News Center, here's John Boss.
There's been an explosion at the federal court building in downtown Oklahoma City. Broadcast reports say there are a number of injuries. Other details are sketchy so far. The blast has blown away a large portion of the front of that building in Oklahoma City. The numbers keep climbing in a chemical incident at the main train.
You're listening to News Radio 620 WTMJ. I'm Charles Sykes. I'm talking with, joined here in the studio live by Superintendent Howard Fuller. Stewart on the Cellular One phone. You're on WTMJ.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning, Stewart.
As a large taxpayer of the city of Milwaukee, I'd like to thank Dr. Fuller for what he's done and the effort he's made I think in retrospect we have to look at he's butting heads with the strongest advocacy group probably anywhere in the country, being the teachers' unions. The irony here is that Dr. Fuller, in his resignation, has probably done the most effective thing, I feel, in the reformation of MPS, because I think the average person, taxpayer in the city of Milwaukee is going to understand that indeed the inmates are running the asylum, and Dr. Fuller is a true loss to all of us.
Well, it is kind of sad that it took something like this to get this much public attention. The fact is the teachers union did win the election because, I would argue, because one, they're very organized, they're funded, but frankly, they were more passionate than people who were on the other side of the issue. What needs to change for people who want to fix the schools to be as passionate as the people who don't want to fix the schools?
Well, you know, Charlie, you put your finger on what I think is a very difficult problem, and that is I think any well-organized group can always control, to a large degree, low turnout elections. And I think one of the things we may have to look at, or people ought to consider, is should we move school board elections? I mean, because there are elections that are nonpartisan. I mean, like the mayoral race, for example, where there are a larger number of people that come out. There are more people who are listening and who are interested. That might be one way of increasing the number of people who get involved. But no matter what happens, people still have to get out and vote. I mean, the way democracies work, those people who vote participate, and those people who don't participate. And so in the end, people still have to come out and vote.
All right, Sue from Milwaukee, you're on 620 WTMJ.
I hope I can control myself. I'm very, very, very upset with the situation. I even called the MTA, and I called our school board lady, and I've talked to Dr. Fuller's secretary yesterday, and I wish him the best. This is the worst thing that's happened, and if people could have had foresight, they would have seen it, but what can I say?
Thanks for the call. I appreciate it. Richard from the Northwest Side, you're on 620 WTMJ.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning, Richard.
I am very, very upset for a number of things. Number one, I'm upset because all of this politics that's going on with the school board and that position now, because I think it's just be simply a pawn to be moved, and to borrow the statement made by the other, a water boy for the school teachers.
All right, Dr. Fuller, this is obviously something you had to consider, whether or not it was worthwhile to stay and fight.
Yeah, it's like I used the statement yesterday that you got to know when to hold and you got to know when to fold. And I understand what you mean about fighting, but you know, Muhammad Ali had this idea that what you got to do is you got to stick and move. And so it doesn't mean that when you fight that you're always going to stand directly in front of somebody and let them jam you. You may have to find other ways of fighting. And I believe that that's what I'm going to, I mean, I know that that's what I'm going to attempt to do if I'm able to stay in Milwaukee. So, Rich, I want to assure you that, number one, I'm never going to quit fighting for our children. But I just believe that after 4 years of what I've gone through, I felt it was time for me to step out and find another way to carry on that fight.
Charles, one more thing. Just one more thing. My concern, and hopefully I won't offend anyone, I'm not politically correct, okay? My concern is that because you stepped down, my fear is that they will get somebody in there that is not sensitive to the African American plight, considering that's the major problem that we're having in the public schools, is getting the African American child focused, even though they're coming from these dysfunctional families. I mean, the statement made by some of the teachers about not being able to teach them is really scary. Coming from a dysfunctional family myself, I'm concerned as to how much role do you have in the next coming superintendent, or do you have a concern about who's going to replace you? Thanks.
Okay, well, number one, I will have no role to play in that. I mean, I have a concern, but that's not something that I have any responsibility for, nor should I, in point of fact. But someone who can have an effect on it is you. And it seems to me that people like you need to become involved in the question with the board as to who the new superintendent would be. So this is your opportunity, as you said, that you hold yourself a little bit at fault for not standing up and becoming more involved. This is your opportunity to become more involved.
It must be a little bit slightly, nice, but also frustrating, all these people coming out saying, we're with you 100%. Where were they during the April election? You did say something interesting in your comment last night about reform is underway. Right. That in fact, the school board would hide behind you. People look at you as a symbol of reform, and if you would have stayed there, you would have been, in effect, impotent and powerless.
Right.
But
I felt, Charlie, I could get put into a situation where for some people who would want to block real reform, it was the best of both worlds. Number one, they could blame me for everything that goes wrong. And then secondly, because I'm there are certain people who would not more aggressively move to make changes because I was there. And so, I'm just not going to allow myself to be in that position.
All right, 799-1234, 799-1620. Our conversation with Dr. Howard Fuller continues on Charles Sykes.
The Milwaukee Repertory Theater presents the American premiere of Don Juan on Trial, now through May 1st.
Good morning.
Good morning.
In many respects, this situation reminds me of what happened out in Newark, New Jersey, where they were implacable against reform.
Thanks for the call. I totally agree with you. I think a point you're making is there are no magic bullets out there. Choice is not a magic bullet. Charter schools are not magic bullets. But if we could take all of these things together and we truly do figure out a way to empower parents, I think the siblings, and in essence, taking care of their parents. And we can't just walk away and say those are not crucial issues. They are very important issues. And so we've got to stress individual responsibility along with the other things that we're talking about doing.
All right, Bill from Waukesha, you're on 620 WTMJ.
Hi, a couple of comments. First, shame on both of you for only squeezing an hour out of the show when you have a 3-hour program. It's the biggest news story of the year right now.
Well, Bill, excuse me, I devoted 3 hours to this yesterday. I was the person that broke the story here, Bill.
Right, I understand it, but Dr. Fuller did say in things from Dr. Fuller, your history in Milwaukee has been to leap from one job to another and not really stay and finish the job that you undertake. I'm very disappointed in you at this point in time for giving up or quitting or whatever it is, and instead of staying and fighting, you have a 2-year contract yet, and I think you should stay and fulfill that contract. And it's a lot easier to stand, to turn and run than it is to stand up. You have a platform, you have the ability to be vocal. You've always been able to exploit situations to your benefit if you need to, all the way back to the lazy situation. You know how to work with the media, and you know how to expose corruption, and you know how to expose the things that need to be exposed in the situation. To turn and work with these people anymore, in my opinion, is wrong.
Okay, you want to respond to that?
Yeah, first of all, I don't think I blamed anyone. What I said was I think that everyone has a right to push their agenda, just as I have an individual right to determine whether or not I can work in that situation. Obviously I don't agree with your analysis, but I do not intend to stop. There are other ways to continue raising issues and trying to make change, and if I can figure out a way to stay in Milwaukee, I will do that. I can understand, some of what you're saying, but most of it, I don't agree with, but I appreciate your call.
Well, it's always easy to be courageous on behalf of someone else. So nobody's saying somebody else ought to be courageous. I do appreciate, given how much in demand you are today, you of course are the biggest story in the state of Wisconsin, and I am very grateful that you took an hour out of your schedule to talk with us today, and hopefully over the next couple of months, as you continue to speak out, you can come back.
Well, Charlie, thanks for inviting me. As you know, the thing I like about you is that we can disagree without, as they say, becoming disagreeable, and disagree on issues and still are able to sit down and discuss these things. And I think I hope that all of that will be put into the mix, and it will, in the end, all make a real difference for our kids.
Best of luck, Dr. Fuller.
Thank you very much.
You're listening to News Radio 620 WTMJ. I'm Charles Sykes.
Oh, God!
Do you want to talk?
Just kick that door closed so we don't... I get it. Okay, all right.
Tough week, huh?
Yeah, it's been
exhausting.
Yeah, I haven't been able to sleep much. That's the big problem.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Good.
Okay. Dr. Fuller, in your opinion, what are the main problems facing the Milwaukee public school system?
Well, I think the main problem is the one we've always faced, and that is what is it that we do to improve student achievement? Everything has to begin there, and then the question is what is the strategy that would best allow us to do that? And I believe that, as I've said over and over again, that we have to open up the system to new and innovative ideas. We have to do some things that maybe 10 years ago we would not have considered. I don't think any single one of these things will improve student achievement, but I think a number of things brought together will give us a much better chance of improving student achievement. So no matter what else we're talking about, that is the central problem. The second problem that's connected to that is what do we do as a community, though, to ensure that our kids will come to school ready and able to learn, so that we continue to make that connection between things that are happening outside of the school district that impacts on kids' ability to learn, and then the things that we ought to be changing inside the system to be able to meet the needs of those kids.
Can those changes inside the system be made with the existing makeup of the school board?
Well, you know, I really don't know. I mean, I think that depending upon who they get as a superintendent, what they finally agree to as their agenda and their willingness to push it, that there are certain things that I believe, you know, depending upon what direction people want to go, that could continue to happen within the system. But I really think the things that are most needed will need the support of radical changes outside the system to support the things that will be happening in the system. And I know most people in the system don't view it that way, but I've always seen that relationship.
Why not stay on to help achieve those goals?
Well, I think I had to make a decision as to whether or not the environment that I felt was there for me, whether or not that was an environment that I could be the most effective in. I decided that it wasn't. And I don't believe that that's the only place that you can fight for some of these ideas. So if I'm able to stay in Milwaukee, my intention would be to try to continue as best I could to fight for some of these ideas. Although I want to be very clear, there is no position like the superintendent of schools. I mean, that's a special position.
What's next for Howard Fuller?
You know, I've got to start giving some thought to that now. I don't have a job. Over these 4 years, almost 4 years, I have refused any offers to even consider jobs. So I've tried to concentrate totally on MPS, and I want everyone to be clear that that's where my focus was, that I wasn't out looking and all of that. So now, for the first time in my life, I will be leaving a position, and I do not know at this moment what I will be doing. So I'm going to have to start giving some thought to that.
Any likelihood you might be joining Governor Thompson's cabinet?
No, I mean, the governor has been very gracious in saying to me that, you know, there are possibilities in his administration if I was interested. But I think I've been very clear to him that I respectfully decline, because I don't think that that's the direction that I want to go.
Do you see yourself in public education or in government or private industry?
Right now, like, I'm not sure. I mean, as I said, I've had a couple contacts by headhunters for superintendencies outside of Milwaukee. I would prefer to stay in Milwaukee. I would prefer to try to get into a position where I could be effective, but be able to be a little bit more or less restrained and able to really do some things that I think, you know, I want to do, and that would really help the kids. So where that would be, I really don't know at this point.
What do you see happening with the Milwaukee public school system in the next 2 to 5 years?
Well, I think that, you know, the board will probably come up with a very orderly process to get a new superintendent. I think that a lot of the reforms that we've been involved in, I hope that some of them will continue. The decentralization process, I hope that some of that stuff is irreversible. But I do believe that unless we can get some of the other things done, like charters, like choice, where you empower parents, unless we can do some of those things, I still believe that the ability of those people inside the system who want to engage in radical reform, I don't think that they will be as able to do that. In fact, I'm not sure it can be done without some of these other things happening.
What words of advice would you have for the next superintendent?
I really wouldn't, you know, have any. I would just say that a person who ultimately gets this job will be very fortunate in terms of the excellent educators that he or she will be in contact with, and a tremendous number of really good kids. And that if we can do some things, quote, outside of the system that I really don't see so much outside, I think it would support him or her in any type of aggressive effort that they might want to make to continue making changes.
And advice in terms of relationship with the school board?
Well, I think anybody who comes in as a superintendent will probably have his or her own ideas about how to relate to a board. That is one of the key aspects of being a superintendent. So I would assume that someone who comes in that he or she would have the support of the board, and that would be very important.
How would you describe your relationship with the board as a whole?
Well, I think that I've been very fortunate in that over the last 4 years, in spite of some early difficulties, that I have been able to work, I think, very well with the board members. I had the good fortune of having Jeanette Mitchell as a board president and then Mary Bills as board president, and they both were tremendously supportive. And for the most part, board members have been supportive, and even when they disagreed up until recently, most of the things were done in a principled way, in a way that I felt respected me as a person, and that enabled me to go on.
Could you describe your relationship with Director Todd?
I don't have a relationship with Director Todd.
Do you see him becoming the next board president, and if so, what impact does that have on the system?
I really don't think it's appropriate for me to comment about that, because I really don't know.
Okay. See if there's anything else on my list. There is indeed something else on my list. There has been talk of dividing the Milwaukee Public School District into smaller districts. We've heard 4 smaller districts. What are your thoughts about dividing MPS into smaller districts?
I think people need to be very careful about that. Being one of the people who advocated that, what I realize now that I know more is that you could end up in a situation where you create 4 really impoverished school districts. And the issue of the funding, the issue of the capital expenditures. And just being a small district doesn't mean you get out of the kinds of issues that you have in a larger district. While generally smaller is better, you can transport some of those same issues into smaller school districts. I would hope that people would be very cautious about that and not let that become a diversion from the things that are already on the table. I think we need to reach some principled decisions about whether or not we're going to support choice, whether or not we're going to support real charter schools. I mean, I think those things have the capacity to have a much greater impact on the ability of schools to ultimately function in the best interest of kids. I believe that now. Obviously, I had a different view some years ago, but my experience now has taught me that we need to be very careful about thinking that that's a solution to the situation here in Milwaukee.
What has this week been like for you?
It's been sort of emotionally draining, because I've been talking to a lot of people, and I got a lot of advice, and I really tried to think about it. I haven't slept very much, and then once I really kind of knew what I was going to do, it was kind of emotional for me to talk with people who I care about in the system, and people who just supported me. I mean, the secretaries in my office, Diane and Holly, Martha, Tina, and then Helen, who handled my schedule, and Kathy Kirchhoff, who was like my right-hand person, and then all of the directors, and then those principals that I've made contacts with. And so, it's been emotionally difficult. And then a little kid stopped me yesterday. He came up to my car and, told me he didn't want me to leave. And then, but after we talked about it, he said, okay, as long as you're going to be with us. So, it's been emotionally difficult, I think.
Now that the decision has been made, has a burden been lifted?
Yeah, I'm sad because, as I said, there is no position like the superintendent of schools. I mean, it's a special position. But on the other hand, there's a certain liberating experience in that I can begin to say and do things that I think. And, you know, that always feels good. But I want to make sure that people in Milwaukee Public Schools know that whatever I say and do, even though they may disagree with me, it will never be because I want to destroy the public school system or to bash those people in the public school system who work hard every day for our kids. It's just that I have some different views about what I think needs to happen to support their efforts. And I just hope at least, you know, some of the people will see it in that way.
We wish you the very best in the years ahead, wherever the road takes you.
Thank you very much.
You bet. Well, it is hard to imagine you not in a public role and not in an activist role. That just isn't the Howard Fuller that I know.
Yeah, we've been knowing each other a long time. It's been a lot of years.
It goes back to the Lacey years.
Yeah, all the way back to Lacey.
Small churches on the north side. I remember that late at night.
Incarnation Lutheran,
That's
where we
exactly.
have ways in terms of the relationship of the community to the police and this and that. Although, you know, I look at this now and wonder, is it all turning back? Because I see some really troublesome things that are happening in the reactions of the community and the police to it. I hope we can figure out a way not to go back to the Briar years. Yeah. That just was not good for this community.
This is a question way out from left field, but I guess, do you see any possibility of a run for governor?
No, I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in staying and working with kids in some way. I've never been interested in that type of work.
Yeah. Are you guys going to be?
I didn't give you my permission to take my picture, you know, so.
What's your take on Howard Fuller, the man, and what kind of job he's done for the city the last few years?
Well, I feel that Howard Fuller is doing an excellent job. I wish they'd give him more control of the system on how he want to run things. Howard Fuller is an excellent man. I feel that he's doing a damn good job. You probably want to cut that.
In terms of you know what's been improved during his leadership, any things that come to mind in terms of what's gotten better with Milwaukee Public Schools?
Yes, I feel that the parent involvement is a little bit more coming along. I'm a social worker for the MPS for Head Start, and that's one thing that we try to do is to get the family involved in the child education at an early age, and so therefore that the child will constantly grow, because it takes an entire village to raise a child. And that's what we try to stress to our parents when we have a parent meeting.
In terms of anything else in terms of the school system that comes to mind that you've seen improvement on under his leadership?
Yes, the quality of teachers. We got a lot more teachers at the MPS that shows that they care and they give more effort now, because they feel that Howard Fuller is more behind them now than ever. And so therefore, if they will try to do their best to do their job.
Big loss if he steps down for the city?
Oh, definitely, most definitely. I couldn't tell you, but I know there will. And Howard Fuller, I hope he stays in there, because he's doing a great job.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Don't want to drain your battery too much. Okay, make sure we're on here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yep. Looks good. All right, for starters, Chris, what's your take on Howard Fuller, the man, and the job he's done as a superintendent the last few years?
Well, I think he's done a great job. I think it's a difficult job that he steps into, as any superintendent of a school system is. But he's in a situation that he needs to be an advocate to make change in the school system, because kids aren't learning the way they don't learn the way that they need to learn right now. And there needs to be changes done, and he's been spearheading that type of effort to make changes, make it a good environment for kids to learn.
What have you seen specifically in this facility, or just in your opinion overall, some of the changes that you've seen instituted under his leadership?
I think there's got to be more choices offered to students, and that's one thing that I think he's tried to do that. In the educational system, it's not just go to school like they did 50, 60 years ago, that kids need a variety of experiences to get themselves into positions to be productive adults.
Have some things been added at this facility from an educational standpoint under Dr. Fuller?
Well, we've been a site where we've had a couple of alternative schools located here, and we have an outpost school, which is really a class, but there also is a education program that's a full day alternative school. And it works with students that can't handle the day-to-day school situation, and so they're placed in alternative schools for whatever, a variety of reasons. But again, these kids need a place that they can learn. They need a place that may get them out of the regular situation of school and at least get them through school so that, again, they can be a productive adult.
A loss to the city of Milwaukee if he does step down?
I believe so.
Thanks a lot. Here?
Go ahead, Jack.
And, okay, for starters, Cornelius, what do you think of Mr. Fuller, the superintendent? What kind of man do you think?
I think he's a great man, and, you know, he's really trying to improve the schools, and, you know, he has done a lot of good things to improve the schools.
What would be some of those things in your mind?
Like the shooting at Washington, you know, he came up with a lot of safety measures and things like that.
Okay. What are some of the changes that you think have happened, some of the good things that have happened to the school district since Dr. Fuller took control?
Like more safety, better learning, you know, things like that. He really cares about the kids, you know, he's trying to take care of them and everything. I mean, you know, like when Roots King went upstate, he was with us, he gave him support, so, you know, I think he's a supportive man in the schools and out of schools.
Do you think it'd be a big loss if he resigned tonight?
I do. I think it'd be a big loss because I don't think nobody else really cares about the school district as much as he do and to improve it. So I think it'd be a big loss.
What do you think? You think most of the people that come to the Boys and Girls Club and that go to your school know who he is and know what kind of man he is?
Sure, yeah, they know who he is. So, I mean, they see him all around, you know, on TV, maybe just walking on the street. Because I see him around my house. He live over there around me, so, you know, they know who he is and what he's doing to improve the school system.
Excellent. Now not only do you get to, let me get your name here first. John?
James.
James? Okay. What's your last name, James?
Nichols. N-I-C-H.
Okay. And where do you go to school, James?
Grand Avenue Middle School.
Okay.
He was there not too long.
Really?
Yeah.
And how old are you, James?
14.
And just wonderful. Okay. All right, James, for starters, what do you know about Dr. Fuller and what kind of man he is?
Well, to me, he seems like he is a nice young man, you know. I'm glad that he started that program called School to Work. And, you know,
one more time, what kind of man do you think he is?
He's a nice gentleman, you know. He's the type that you could talk to, you know. He'd know about everything because he's a nice young man. Not to be saying that, but he's real nice. And I'm glad that he started that School to Work program, you know. That's helping me out a lot and my school peers too. And basically, he's just a real good man that I know.
What do you think that he's done recently to help the schools in your eyes?
Well, he did a lot of stuff basically because he's been there for most of the schools. He visited most of the schools too. He came to Grand Avenue Middle School before. He talked to us. We asked him questions. He did a lot, but I can't come up with some of the stuff that he did now.
What did he talk to you about? What kind of things did he say that you remember?
I think basically we was talking to him. He wasn't saying too much to us. We was just asking him about his background and what college did he go to, how old he was, how many children he got, and basically I think all he said was just stay in school and keep our heads straight and stay out of trouble and stay away from the drugs, stay away from bad people that's gonna give you a bad rep.
Do you look at him as a role model?
Well, yeah. He's a real good role model. You know, he's someone that you can look up to. He seems like he could be a real good father to everybody. You know, he's nice and fair. He's pretty good.
And anyone who wants to work on...
Okay. For starters, tell me, what do you know about Dr. Fuller? Is good man?
Yeah, I believe he's a good man. He's did a lot in our school system for me to know. He has made our schools a little bit safer. He just made like our schools just better, I think.
Have you ever met the man?
Well, I shook his hand before. I never met him.
Have you heard him speak? Has he ever spoke to your come to your school?
Yeah.
What kind of things did he tell you? Do you remember it all?
No.
No? In terms of, since you've been going to school, what kind of things have you seen that have maybe been better the last couple of years?
Well, he's put, like, on our security, he has been checking, you know, lockers and everything. He's been scanning and everything.
Do you think the schools are, the education you're getting, the teachers are better?
Yes, the education, well, yes, it's been better. It's been more better. Like, our teachers have been more understanding and everything.
What would you think if Mr. Fuller resigned and quit tonight? There's rumors that he might be doing that.
I don't think he should leave. Not to me. I don't think he should leave.
You think there's anybody, if they were trying to replace him, what kind of person would they have to find to replace him?
Someone like him. Someone, well, I don't know.
How would you, if I'd never met the man, I have, you know, I've interviewed him so much. If I'd never met him before, how would you describe him to someone, like you have a friend from another city or something?
Well, to me, he's understanding. He knows about, like, the black community. He knows what we go through. He's someone that just understands us. He's just a caring person.
Excellent, Star. Is it typical amount of people here? Is it more because school is out?
Let's go. You're on the stairs.
If you wouldn't have told me that, I thought it was a pretty good turnout for a weekday. But no, this is nothing, huh?
Is this a light turnout?
I'll beat you.
He's asking if there's 4 kids.
Yeah, right there. It'll be like the first or second floor.
That was all we already bought.
I was working in PS. I just